This is Michael Popok, LegalAF. Kyle Fitzsimmons, come on down. You're going to be sentenced for a long time in federal prison for what you did to attack 5 police officers and others on Jan 6th. And you're going to be sentenced by Judge Rudy Contreras, an Obama appointee. And the federal government, the Department of Justice, has filed its sentencing memo just on Friday, 48 pages, and it wants one of the highest sentences ever imposed on a Jan 6 defendant so far. They're seeking 15 and a half years of a sentence. Now, some might be thinking, who follow this closely on the MeidasTouch network and hot takes like mine right now, well, I've heard higher sentences, and you have. Just recently, this past week, we had an 18-year sentence actually imposed by a federal judge, Judge Amit Mehta, against the leader and founder of the Oath Keepers. But that was for seditious conspiracy, something we haven't charged or seeked a conviction on as an American jurisprudence justice system in 150 years. And that guy, who's going away for a long, long time, for 18 years in a federal prison, he was also given by the judge in the sentencing calculation a domestic terrorist enhancement. Here, Kyle Fitzsimmons was convicted of 7 felonies after a 4-day bench trial, meaning just a judge, no jury. That was his choice. That was Fitzsimmons' choice, because he was a coward. He didn't want to go in front of a jury. So he just decided to take his luck and take his chances with federal Judge Rudy Contreras, as I said, an Obama appointee who himself had a long and illustrious career as a U.S. attorney, which is exactly what the Department of Justice prosecutors, that's exactly where they work. So you can imagine how that trial went. 7 felony convictions, including many, many assaults on law enforcement. I mean, this guy, a butcher, and we're going to put up a picture, I'm not making this up, who dressed as a butcher at the Jan 6th defendants at the Jan 6th insurrection. And it wasn't hard to find this defendant because he literally wore a butcher jacket embroidered with his name, Kyle, because he was a butcher named Kyle from Lebanon, Maine. He tried to recruit people on social media to join him to attack the Capitol on Jan 6th. He was the only one that heard the clarion call of Donald Trump, made his way down to the Capitol, and then did battle in what one law enforcement official, one sergeant, who was brutally beaten by Kyle Fitzsimmons to the point where he's no longer able to be in law enforcement. He was so injured. He described it as a medieval battle scene. Sounds like something out of like Game of Thrones at the Western Terrace Tunnel. I've talked a lot about, over the last 6 months or a year, the sentencing for Jan 6 defendants. Many of them, because that is where the most violent attacks on law enforcement happened, were at the West Terrace Tunnel. For those that don't know exactly where that is, every presidential inauguration for the last 9 inaugurations takes place with the West Tunnel archway in the backdrop. It is a symbolic representation of power, of the presidency, and of the peaceful transfer of power. And that's where these Jan 6 people, it'd be like battling at the feet of Lady Liberty, the Statue of Liberty. If you're trying to tear down liberty and democracy, that's where they chose to battle. Picture this: 30 police officers, 30, linked arm in arm, shoulder to shoulder, protecting the glass doors behind them, because if that line didn't hold, and the dozens and dozens and dozens of insurrectionists, including one of the most, if not the most aggressive and violent, Kyle Fitzsimmons, broke through that line, got to the back, got through the glass doors and up the stairs, and they would be inside the belly of the Capitol, right? One of the most vulnerable areas, and be able to get inside and attack all sorts of elected officials and staff. They were still making their way out to safety, being led by Capitol Police and Metro Police. And so that is where this guy did battle. And for those that wonder, not really the MeidasTouch people and the people that follow me on YouTube, but others, what this guy did that was so bad. Why is he sitting in jail, pretrial detention, awaiting his sentencing? Why is he a threat to democracy? Well, I'll just give you 3 of the 5 attacks that he made on law enforcement. First of all, he was carrying, you might see it in the photo, besides his butcher outfit, okay, he was also carrying an unstrung bow, a giant wooden instrument of weaponry, a weapon with him. There's pictures of him with it. There's also pictures of him with a bloody forehead and a giant smile on his face, like he was in some sort of demented rugby scrum that he was leading instead of what he was really doing, which was he was a treasonous insurrectionist that was trying to overthrow democracy. So he threw a wooden spear at a officer and hit a Metro officer, Sarah Beaver, in her head. He then swiped at the face, injuring Metro Detective Fusan Nguyen in his face. He then wrenched Sergeant Gonell's shoulder so hard that Sergeant Gonell could no longer serve in law enforcement. That's how injured he is. And that's just 3 out of the top 5 things he did as he literally battled hand-to-hand combat against law enforcement to try to overthrow democracy. He's got the wrong judge for all of this as well. He's got Rudy Contreras, who's not going to brook any fools and is not going to be light on this particular defendant at all. I don't know if it's going to be exactly 15 and a half years, but it's going to be awful close to it. And it's going to fit quite neatly into these last 2 weeks where there's already been an 18-year sentence, a 14-year sentence, and 2 10-year sentences. This will fit right into that mix. We're going to follow this type of sentencing, this type of recommendations by the Department of Justice, and the facts behind each of these people. And one last thing, before I even leave the hot take, I'd be remiss, which dovetails with another hot take that I did earlier today. Fitzsimmons is trying to raise money, proclaiming his innocence, that he is some sort of POW, that he's not able to get a fair shake in our justice system because of biased prosecutors, even though he's been convicted by the judge and he's about to be sentenced, showing no contrition whatsoever and trying to raise money, and has raised $25,000 already off the backs of this lie that he's innocent, that he didn't do anything wrong, that he's a political prisoner, that he's a POW. All the other tired lies that are being promoted by the Marjorie Taylor Greens, the MAGA right-wing Republicans, and the Jim Jordans about these dangers to society. Fitzsimmons is trying to capitalize it by raising money. So in response, the Department of Justice is going after the money that these Jan 6 people have collected from their gullible followers, their donors, lying to them, and taking it back by way of a fine or other ways of clawback. So they're going after his money, going after Fitzsimmons' money raised on the back of a lie. In their sentencing memorandum, they're seeking a major fine against them as well. Sentencing will be probably the next month or so. I'll follow it closely on LegalAF, the Wednesday and Saturday podcast that I co-founded and co-anchor, also only on the MeidasTouch network. We sit at that intersection of law and U.S. politics in a way that really nobody else is doing right now. And we bring it to you in hot takes and in content just like this one. If you like this one and you learn something from what I'm telling you, give me a thumbs up. I'll continue to bring this content to you. And you can comment. I often read the comments. It helps make the show, the program, and the delivery of this information better. And you can follow me on all things social media at MS Popok. This is Michael Popok, LegalAF reporting.
Hey, Meidas Mighty. Love this report? Continue the conversation by following us on Instagram at MeidasTouch to keep up with the most important news of the day. What are you waiting for? Follow us now.